Visit croonersmn.com to find your perfect concert experience. And don't miss Maggie's Lounge, open Wednesdays through Sundays at 4:30. Crooners Supper Club, where old school nightlife meets the 21st.
Can you hear me?
That's croonersmn.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live in Minneapolis, St. Paul on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. In Chicago on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk at night. And in the nighttime hours in Seattle, 1150 AM, KKNW. It is the Matt McNeil Show on your Thursday. Good to have you with us today. Jam-packed day today. Michael Broadcorp going to join us to talk about politics, how he is now endorsing the Democrat. We'll talk about that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. I wanted to start things off today, though, with okay, so like many places in the country, especially in House races across the country, federal U.S. House races, there are Republicans who are desperately trying their hardest to take credit for the infrastructure bill that they proudly voted against. And we have that in Minnesota. Our own Pete Stauber, who represents Minnesota 8, Republican, who called that bill socialism. He basically has now tried to take credit multiple times for that bill. So why not? Let's have his opponent come join us right now. Joining us from the Minnesota 8th Congressional District race, the Democrat DFL endorsed candidate is Jen Schultz. She's kind enough to take some time today to join us to talk about things. Hi, Jen. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on with us today. Okay, first of all, I'm glad you're running again. You ran last time, and you're running again, and you yourself have got to admit, in the last month and a half, the way things have kind of changed in this country in these political races, it's got to be somewhat pretty encouraging, especially now that on the ticket, the national ticket, is the governor of the state of Minnesota.
It is. My campaign was energized before that change to the top of the ticket for the Democrats because people are so unhappy with my opponent. And after that, it was even more energized. So, I went to the convention. I felt the energy. My district is very, very excited to flip this district back to blue. This district's been a solid Democratic district for the last 77 years. And we remember former and late U.S. Representative Jim Oberstar, and he was amazing, and that's what we want back.
You, of course, once again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show here, this is not something that's unusual. You've had multiple Republicans across the country try to take credit for this bill. Pete Stauber, very specifically, voted against this bill, everything in it, any kind of infrastructure improvements for his district, because he called it, quote, socialism. For him now, I mean, once again, he clearly has nothing to run on. If his whole campaign now is trying to repackage votes that he voted against the bill, but now he's trying to take credit for it, it's clear that he hasn't done anything for the Minnesota 8th Congressional District.
He hasn't accomplished anything. And when you don't do anything, all you can do is really take credit for other people's work, which he's really good at. And now people don't believe anything he says because he lies about what he's actually accomplished. He's only passed 2 of his bills into law in 6 years in Congress. He's named a post office and he created a task force. That is all he has done. He's voted against the best interests of his constituents every time he votes. So he's voted against, the infrastructure bill. We got $1 billion for the Blatnick Bridge, which is crucial for jobs and for commerce and thousands of people cross that bridge every day between Wisconsin and Minnesota. But not only was it just roads and bridges, it was broadband, which is desperately needed across this large district, and lead line service replacements, money for our airports, our
Yes.
port of entry, where we do a lot of shipping and a lot of commerce, and the region depends on that. So he is voting against jobs, and it was a huge jobs bill. But he's voted against reproductive rights. He does not believe that we should have access to birth control or IVF treatment. And I don't want him in my doctor's office telling me what healthcare I can consume or what my doctor can provide. He's voted against veterans. I don't know which I don't know how you can vote against veterans, but he voted against the PACT Act, which provides healthcare coverage for veterans exposed to toxins like burn pits. So he is on the wrong side of the issue. He hasn't even had one in-person town hall meeting. So he is afraid of his constituents to face them because of his lack of accomplishments.
We should also mention that he is a huge supporter of Trump, and he has not shied away from that. He's doubled down on that. He feels Donald Trump with its babies in cages and nuking hurricanes and trying to buy Greenland, all that stuff. That was good. He wants another term of it. That is not that district. My family is from Virginia up there in the Iron Range. I've got a long-standing history up there. I will say this, and you're going to make a good smile on your face. A lot of people up there are far more excited about your campaign than his campaign right now. And I think it's because after so many years, he's promised to do things and he's just not getting anything done. And they might have a few Trump supporters up there. Of course they do. I mean, there are some areas up there for sure, but most people I don't think are on board with Trump in the Minnesota 8th District. And I think his blind allegiance to Trump is actually more of an anchor now than a help.
I think so. We see a lot fewer Trump signs, and my signs are everywhere. I see very few Stauber signs. So he has definitely lost support. And people ask me about polling data. We did have polling data before the change on the top of the ticket. And our polling data suggests we're statistically tied once people know that he hasn't done anything. But the best data is the August 13th primary data, where we outperform Stauber in every part of the district, except for that strong legislative Republican primary race in District 28A. So our numbers are way up. His numbers are way down, including on the Iron Range. And so I think he's in big trouble, and he knows it.
Well, and I would say so too. And that's why I think his, and once again, his post he just put out, his brazen post where he's trying to take credit for a bridge, which he did not do anything for. And when you get to the point where you're trying to argue, well, I had a suggestion in the matter, but you voted against it. If you're going to thank anyone, thank Klobuchar and Tina Smith, the two senators, because they're the ones that championed anything for your district because you voted against it. The fact that he's at that point, I agree with you. I think you are seeing, and I think this national trend, it's not just your district. I think in a lot of places, Florida is going to be very interesting, that you are seeing the Democrats really start to rise up. Voter registration is up for the Democrats across the board. You've got, once again, it's the campaign of happiness and joy versus hate and anger. And he's decided hate and anger is where he wants to go. I agree with you. I think that Minnesota 8, it's going to go to the DFL and the Democrats this election cycle.
Yeah, hate and anger, I guess those are virtues for the GOP. But and every email that comes from his campaign side, it is about blaming and complaining the Biden-Harris administration or the Walz administration, talking about issues that he should be solving as a member of Congress. He forgets he's in Congress and has the power to create bills and pass bills and then send them to the president. But it is definitely not joy, a campaign of joy. And I have this video called I've Been Everywhere, Man. You should check it out on YouTube. But people watch that video and it just documents everywhere I've been to Johnny Cash's song. And people are filled with happiness after they watch that. So a lot of my supporters watch that video a lot and are excited about this race because they are tired of the bitterness and the anger. And we need to get rid of a lot of folks in Congress. And we have to start with Stauber and we have to unseat Pete and start electing people, because who you elect matters. Elect people who know how to work across the aisle. And I have an 8-year track record of doing that as a state legislator. I have a 100% pro-labor voting record. So we need people that want to get stuff done. And that's what I did. I solved big problems. I have a background in economics and I've been working on healthcare reform for 20 years. They want me in Congress so I can not only help people of my district, but help people across the whole country.
Jen Schultz is joining us. She's the Democratic candidate for the Minnesota 8th Congressional District, running against Pete Stauber up there, who is just garbage. One of the interesting demographics of your district is the strong Native American vote. They redistricted it, and most of the northern tribes are now within the Minnesota 8th Congressional District. And so what you've got is obviously, and Stauber is once again one of those guys that goes in there and says Native American issues matter to me, and then he never does anything to back that up. Talk about that voting block, because that has been a voting block which has been able to, in Minnesota at least, help Democrats in the DFL, get past and get these majorities.
Yeah, so 7 of the 11 tribes are in the 8th district, so it is a big voting block. Stauber has not made friends with these tribes. Um, he has ridiculed and criticized Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland, and that does not sit well for these tribes. And he hasn't done anything. He doesn't show up, just like he doesn't show up in other parts of the district. He doesn't show up to the tribes. And hasn't done anything for them, doesn't talk about the importance of tribal sovereignty. And I do. They support me, and I will definitely and have been showing up for them just to listen to what they need. I tried to attend all of their State of the Band addresses to understand what their needs are. And they're very similar to needs across the district: affordable housing, good wastewater treatment facilities, high quality water and water treatment facilities. So, transportation, they need all of those resources too.
And it's kind of one of those things where, and one of the big things with that I've talked with, I've heard the Native Americans talking about is water quality, and they want to preserve the water quality there. Jeopardizing the 125,000 hospitality jobs on the Iron Range for potentially a few thousand mining jobs, just so Antofagasta, the Chilean mining company, gets a nice little payday. I don't think that that's serving Minnesota at all in any capacity, and especially when you're talking about the potential of violating the Boundary Waters Canoe area and the waters up in northern Minnesota. You got to make sure that if you're going to do this, you got to do it right. And right now, they're just wanting to do it without trying to do it right.
Yeah, well, I was a Great Lakes commissioner for 8 years, concurrent with my state legislative seat. And I learned how important it is to protect and promote the Great Lakes economic region, but to protect our watershed as well, because everyone agrees on one thing. They don't want to harm our water. They don't want to harm our water quality because it would destroy people's wealth. Most of our wealth is tied to our houses, our investment in our property. But Stauber, this is his key issue, is mining. And mining has gone backwards under Stauber. Things get litigated because of the 1854 treaty. So he is not a leader that's going to bring all the stakeholders to the table. And I've always said, I'm 100% pro mining. I'm 100% pro miner. And I'm 100% pro let's find out how we're going to do responsible mining. And that means bringing the tribes to the table, bringing everyone to the table, and investing in the science and the research that we need to do it responsibly. And he has done none of that.
Okay, so for folks in Chicago, folks in Seattle, we can flip this seat. This is a seat that needs to go back to the Democrats, and it needs to happen. Jen Schultz. Jen, if people want to find out more information, make a donation, go door knocking for you up in the beautiful Minnesota 8th District, how do they get in touch with your campaign?
All they need to do is go to jenschultzforcongress.com. We have raised close to $1 million without outside national support. He's only raised a little over $1 million. He thinks he's in a safe seat. We are definitely going to flip it, but we need to raise a little bit more money to get our TV and digital ads up. So I hope people donate, 1. And 2, yes, phone bank, write postcards, sign up to volunteer. We already have 2,000 volunteers. So we have a lot of grassroots help, but what we really need is money.
JenSchultzForCongress.com. Thanks, Jen. We'll take a break, come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950, here to tell you about the exterior construction company I trust, Snap Construction. If your home was hit with the most recent storms, trust the most well-reviewed exterior construction company, Snap Construction, for a free home inspection.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. There are a lot of great construction companies in town. My advice is to take your time and do your research. Make sure they are locally owned and that they guarantee their craftsmanship for life. Also, you want to find a company that's been in business for at least 10 years. You want to work with a company that's going to be there long after the work is done. Snap Construction has handled thousands of claims, and we'll help you through the process.
Don't go with the out-of-town, fly-by-night contractor. Most storm damage goes missed by the untrained eye. Trust Snap Construction for your free storm damage evaluation. For your free storm damage evaluation, call Snap Construction at 612-333-SNAP or visit them online at snapconstruction.com. That's 612-333-SNAP or snapconstruction.com.
Crooner's Supper Club invites you to enjoy drinks, a delicious dinner, and live music from both big-name local and national artists in a wide array of styles. Before or after your show, check out the new Maggie's Lounge, a perfect spot to visit with friends. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays beginning at 4:30 with cocktails and light fare. And you don't need a ticket to enjoy the great atmosphere of Maggie's. Crooner's Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65. A little piece of old school nightlife in the 21st century.
Join AM 950 on Tuesday, September 10th for the AM 950 Presidential Debate Watching Party at Crooner's Supper Club. Doors open at 6 p.m. with a live broadcast at 7. Your ticket will get you into the debate watching party as well as pizza and light snacks. The debate begins at 8 p.m. and you can enjoy the debate bingo. There will also be a cash bar. Tuesday, September 10th at 6 p.m., it's the AM 950 debate watching party at Crooner Supper Club on Highway 65, just north of 694. Tickets are $25 and available at am950radio.com. That's am950radio.com.
Tune in this Saturday morning right here on AM 950 for the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show from 7 to 8 a.m. We'll be discussing 5 keys to a better garden next year, as well as fall cleanup, what to leave and what to pick up. Our guest is author Leo Carver will be with us, and we'll answer your garden questions. That's all this Saturday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on AM 950. Tell a friend, and let's grow together.
Hi, I'm Corey Wisco, president of the Welshire. The Welshire is a memory care community founded by my family, and we really wanted to make a difference when it came to caring for people with this insidious disease. Welshire has 24-hour nursing. We have over 40 people on our activity team. Our days always look the same, whether it's a Monday or a Sunday. That's why families have come to us, and a lot of times from other memory care facilities. Come see what makes Welshire so different. Visit us at welshiremn.com.
The Matt McNeil Show. Sorry to be kind of abrupt there with Jen Schultz at the end there, but Minnesota 8, great candidate up there. And I want to take a moment, if I can, to talk about Pete Stauber. Because if you've all got in Washington, Seattle area, I guarantee you out in Illinois, we've all got a Pete Stauber out there. We all have one. The guy that proudly voted against the infrastructure bill, the guy that did that, and then basically has spent pretty much his entire ever since then saying, well, but I need to take credit for it. Now, let's just talk about the ludicrous nature of that. Because regardless of whether or not, well, there was one meeting where I said, maybe it'd be great if we did this one project. You at one point, there was a T in the road. It wasn't a drive-through. You had to make a decision of turning left or turning right. Turning left, passing the bill. Turning right, screaming, socialism, commie stuff. And Pete Stauber went, socialism, commie stuff. And ever since then, he has tried his hardest to take credit for it like he was some sort of Jedi with the mind trick. Dude, man, first of all, you're not that smart, dude. You are not. But let's just, in Minnesota, at least, what we can say is this, is the people that champion this, who voted for it, were Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. They're the ones that got this done. You want to say thank you in the Minnesota 8th District, you say it to Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. You don't say it to Pete Stauber, because this is Pete Stauber's entire argument. And once again, this is probably something similar you've seen with representatives in Illinois or in Washington. Here is the argument. Well, even though I called Joe Biden a commie and Marxist and Hitler and socialist and the devil and Satan and all these things, one day I called up Joe and said, hey, Joe, it's your old buddy Pete Stauber. And Joe Biden's like, hey, what's up, dear buddy? And I told him he needed to do these things. And he's so scared of me. Sure, Mr. Stauber, sure. Let me quickly put those in the bill. I'm so sorry to have bothered you. And you see, I need to take credit for it all. No, that's not what happened, dude. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. And you know it. You voted against it. And all of you are on the record screaming socialism. So when you're putting out investing in Pine City, you didn't invest in Pine City. You voted against it and said that bill was socialism. You yourself did it. So are you now pro-socialism? Is that what you're saying, Pete? Well, one day I was walking past a group of people and I said, Pine City Bridge. And they knew exactly what I was talking about. And that's how it got in the bill. I will say Pete Stauber is in trouble. I actually think, there's a tendency, and we have it here. You have it in Chicago. You have it in Seattle. The news media doesn't want to look at the real playing field as it lies. And it is remarkable how things have turned around in this country. They were so confident they were going to win, they bragged about Project 2025, something Pete Stauber loves. Oh, he's all over that. Pete Stauber is. Pete Stauber's all over Project 2025. Pete Stauber's out there, and he's pushing these extremist ideas. They're out there. They're thinking they're not going to lose. Joe Biden's old. We spent 4 years writing Joe Biden's old jokes, and then all of a sudden, Joe Biden steps aside. Kamala Harris takes over. Governor Walz becomes the vice president candidate, and I can tell you once again, I was just up in northern Minnesota. That's where Minnesota 8 is, up on the Iron Range, the northeastern part of the state. Duluth, beautiful Duluth. If you ever get the chance, a very cute town. And yeah, a nice little area there. And when you go into that district, there was a definite refounding of the idea of Democrats. Now, just so you understand that area, it's a fascinating area because really the labor movement in this country started there. They discovered iron ore on the range, the Iron Range up there, back 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, maybe 100, 120, 130 years ago. And they started mining it. And this is back in the day when it was a company town where the mine would own all the houses, the bank, the store. You didn't complain. You didn't do it. You just basically were only there at the happiness of the company. And if the company didn't turn on you, all of a sudden you were gone and you had nothing to show for it. They would take your money. They would take your house. They'd take all your stuff. That was the case. Funny story. To people that came over, the immigrants that came over at that time were Finns from Finland and the Scandinavians. And the Scandinavians and Finns were some of the earliest labor movement countries in the world. And with it came this idea of no. The worker has rights. The company makes profit, but the company makes profit because the workers work hard and the workers have rights in this situation. You can't just have a world where the worker has to work to their death and basically has nothing to show for it in the end. And that's where a lot of this began. I mean, you had in the 1920s and 30s strikes across the country that really started there, but this was good 20, 30 years beforehand. And that's where the idea of fighting back against the idea that the corporation was this infallible, unquestionable entity. A lot of that started up in northeastern Minnesota. And, there has always been a Democratic tinge up there. As Jen mentioned, that for the most part, it's been a Democratic stronghold for a long time. It's only recently that, that Republicans have made any inroads out there, and that's mainly because of Trump. Because, let's face it, a lot of those people up there, the most important thing is their racism and bigotry, and that's why they love Trump. And that's the case. I mean, it's nothing against it. Hey, that's just who the guy is, man. Take a look at his own numbers. He's number one with racists and bigots. He is number one, hands down. And you guys are up there and you love him and in this stuff. The reality is that the rest of the Republican Party, the ones that aren't MAGA, they've had it with him. They've had it with January 6th. They've had it with demeaning the veterans. I'll get to that coming back up here in a second. They've had it with this dictator stuff, the Project 2025 stuff. And here is Pete Stauber thinking he was just going to be able to run on a bunch of old man jokes and realizing he has nothing. So now, once again, he is doing everything in his power. And once again, call these guys out. If this happens in Illinois, it happens in Wisconsin, it happens in Washington, Seattle. If they have a Republican that tries to take credit for bills that they didn't pass, call them out. Do not allow them to take credit for things that they did not do. And Pete Stauber did not do the infrastructure bill as much as he's trying to reframe it of, I used my Jedi mind powers and I got Joe Biden to do it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, you hack. Jen Schultz is going to beat you. I'm looking forward to that. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show on a Thursday.
Come on, get on your feet. It's like 1, 2, what's the move? I got 2, 3.
Hey everyone, this is Ellie Krug, the host of Ellie 2.0 Radio Podcast. I'm here to remind you about the Carver County Pride Festival on Saturday, August 31st from 11 a.m. to 6. The festival will take place at the Carver County Fairgrounds in Waconia. It's a family-friendly event for all ages. We'll have face painting for the kids, yoga, live music, drag bingo, and more than 50 vendor booths. The event is free, so please come. Check out the Pride Festival on August 31 in Waconia by Googling Carver County Pride Festival 2024. I hope to see you there.
Hey, Minnesota, it's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast. You're listening to AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
You want to feel important. You want to be part of something bigger, something that matters and that you can help change things. You want to feel like you belong. We felt that way too. I'm Sergeant Michael Tislin from Chaska, Minnesota, and that's why we did something about it. We aren't just Minnesota Army National Guard soldiers. We are people just like you, and together we can make a difference. Take on your legacy. Visit nationalguard.com/MN to find out more. Sponsored by the Minnesota Army National Guard, aired by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association and this station.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies today with a high near 86. Tonight, showers and storms with a low around 60. And Friday, partly cloudy with a high around 78. A-Lock, a groundbreaking trans comedian, brings their unique blend of humor, insight, and fabulousness to the Uptown Theater on October 23rd with Harry Situation. It's comedy at its best. Secure your seats now at Ticketmaster.com. That's Ticketmaster.com.
Let's have some fun, this beat is sick. I wanna take a ride on your disco stick. Let's have some fun, this beat is sick. I wanna take a ride on your disco stick.
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and overnights 11:50 a.m. KKNW in Seattle, and live on the mothership where I am your mother. AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Good to have you with us today. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Trump looks like he's about 80 minutes late for his speech in Michigan.
The Coney dogs were so good, they put me out of commission.
He went out, did he go past a military cemetery he could violate again? Oh, that's where he's at. He's out there grinning like he's opening up an Arby's. Get my thumbs up. Here I am. Look at all the dead soldiers. Hey. What an idiot. What a freaking idiot. And by the way, just FYI, I'm a veteran. I know I'm a U.S. Army. I was in the military, and I'm very proud of my military service. I'm very proud of it. And he is just, it is stunning to see the amount of people who will defend him. I want to remind you, Barack Obama breathed too heavy. If he was breathing too heavy at a military ceremony, Republicans would be like, how dare he disrespect the troops? Remember the latte salute? He was walking out to the helicopter and he kind of did a salute with his latte and had, how disrespectful. Trump could basically drop his pants, run through a national military cemetery, and rub his lower extremities against every one of the headstones. And these clowns would sit there and say, isn't he the most presidential guy you've ever seen? Oh, God, no other president would have the patriotism to do that. And that is who these people are, man. As a veteran, he disgusts me. He disgusts me. Do you remember when the Russians had bounties on our soldiers and he basically ignored that story? No big deal. Unbelievable. And yet you have the audacity to try to say you're there for the troops. Let's go into the Arlington story, because this Arlington story, you know the story of Arlington. Once again, this is Robert E. Lee's residence in across the river in Virginia. The U.S. military took it from him to basically bury the dead from, the Civil War there as a constant reminder, and it became Arlington National Cemetery. And yeah, it was very specifically it was designed to make Robert E. Lee realize what all he had done, and it has now become the most sacred, honorable resting place for military bravery in this country. And you should go on out there. And there are military cemeteries everywhere, and they are all just, you need to be showing your respect when you're in there. Absolutely. And I know there are far-right Republicans in there. I know there are far-left Democrats. I show respect to all of them that are in there. That's what you do. Trump in his campaign looked at Arlington National Cemetery as a photo op prop scene. I have zero doubt that if we find out, I have zero doubt we will find out that it was his team initially who contacted the families of these soldiers and said, tell you what we want to do. We want to go to Arlington to make them look presidential. And would you be willing to go there? And many of the families probably said no, but two people who are strong Trump supporters said sure. And once again, a family wanting Trump or any candidate to go there to the cemetery to show respect is perfectly fine. It's what he did otherwise. And I will say this, and I'll come back to this again. I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I am going to come back to this again about these families, because they did cross a line that they need to walk back over really freaking fast. I'll get to that. U.S. Army on Thursday said that an Arlington National Cemetery employee was abruptly pushed aside earlier this week during a dispute with members of the Trump campaign. So once again, the Army is saying, nope, indeed, the Trump campaign got physical and pushed aside a member of the force that was working there at Arlington. Former President Trump visited the cemetery in Virginia on Monday to attend a wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. He was with the families of 13 American troops who were killed when the U.S. military pulled its troops from Afghanistan in 2021. After the wreath-laying ceremony, Trump accompanied the families of and two Marines who were injured in the attack, Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews and Corporal Kelsey Lanehart, to Section 60 in the cemetery. It's an area that's mostly reserved for U.S. veterans who've been killed in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The service members Trump was honoring were killed in a suicide bombing at Abbey Gate at the airport in Kabul on August 26, 2021. By the way, once again, an attack where, once again, Joe Biden did make some mistakes there, but that attack happened because of everything Donald Trump did to ensure that attack happened. So before anyone, I would ever want him anywhere near this, I would want him to basically admit that he was the one that put the gears in motion that basically led to this attack there. That was all on Trump. I talked about it yesterday on the show. Two members of the Trump campaign staff reportedly had an altercation with a cemetery official who tried to prohibit the Trump staffers from filming and photographing in Section 60. At that point, Trump's campaign staff allegedly verbally abused and pushed the official aside. Now, what it sounds like had happened is they had given Trump the ability to go film at the headstones of the families that wanted him there. Nowhere else. And Trump and his team felt it was appropriate at that point to try to film campaign ads to make him look so presidential, which they were not supposed to do. They were told this by multiple members of the military. Do not do this. This is Section 60. Do not do this. The defense official told the press that the Trump campaign was warned multiple times ahead of Monday's visit that they could not film or take photographs in Section 60 due to the cemetery's media policy. Federal law prohibits political campaigns or elected officials' activities within Army, national, military cemeteries to include photographers, content creators, or any other persons attending for purpose or in direct support of a partisan political candidate's campaign. So basically, you can't film there. His campaign knew that, and they didn't care. Once again, just complete disrespect for all the people buried there. Despite the federal law, Trump campaign posted a video of Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery in Section 60 on TikTok after the visit. Republican Utah Governor Spencer Cox, who was also in the cemetery, posted a photo of Trump along with the family members of the deceased veterans giving a thumbs up to the cemetery. Once again, that alone, I could spend an entire show on. The absolute dip blank Trump sitting there, big smile on his face, thumbs up, like he just won a pie eating contest. Like he's the intro opening credits for a reality TV show. You're at Arlington National Cemetery. Act like it, you absolute freaking moron. You're at Arlington National Cemetery. You're not opening an Arby's in Beaufort, Georgia. Act like you have some level of decorum and respect. Well, I think that, I just answered the question, didn't I? The guy has none. None. The Trump team, of course, did not make things better. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Stephen Chung disputed the events of the physical altercation, added the campaign was prepared to release footage of the incident as such a defamatory claims were made. Now, once again, the U.S. Army has said, oh, no, they did, which leads me to believe the military has cameras there that have indeed shown them that the Trump campaign people were pushing people aside. They basically released the laying of the wreath ceremony, but they didn't release anything in the Section 60. The fact is, a private photographer was permitted on the premises, and for whatever reason, an unnamed individual clearly suffering from a mental health episode decided to physically block members of Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony, Chung said. If I am that individual, I am suing Chung for $20 million. How dare he do this? Now, once again, the photographer apparently had clearance to take photographs only at the headstones of the people that had invited Trump there. That's it. No panning shots, no nothing. Trump campaign manager Chris Lascivita claimed that Trump was invited by the Abgate Gold Star families to attend Monday's ceremony and honor their loved ones. Once again, that's not in debate. For a despicable individual to physically prevent Trump's team from accompanying him to the solemn event is a disgrace and does not deserve to represent the hollow grounds of Arlington National Cemetery. Whoever this individual is spreading these lies is dishonoring the men. Once again, the U.S. Army has backed up this individual already. So basically, they're trying to attack now the guy that they physically attacked in Arlington so Trump could get his campaign footage in Arlington at the expense of a lot of dead American soldiers. Yeah, you should be pissed. Oy. Arlington National Cemetery confirmed that an incident did occur during Trump's visit. A report was filed. In an official statement released on Thursday, the Army defended its Arlington National Cemetery staff member who was trying to enforce the no photography or filming policies in the altercation with Trump's campaign staffers. An ANC employee who attempted to ensure an adherence to these rules was abruptly pushed aside. The employee subsequently decided not to press charges. Therefore, the Army considers this matter closed. Now, they decided to because of the goon squad that is Trump MAGA Nation, who basically would have found this individual, hunted them down, tormented them, abused that individual, threatened them, swatted them, because that's who they are. They're just a bunch of freaking bullies. Get them! Get them! Get them! Shut up. All you guys are just pants wetters, man. Monday's incident is drawing condemnation from veterans, some who are calling a new low. Several members of Congress who are former veterans called out what they say is Trump's disrespect of fallen veterans on social media. The nonpartisan nonprofit group Veterans for Responsible Leadership called the political stunt gross and a new low. Vote Vets condemned the incident, saying in X, with an election coming up, Trump pretends to care all about those who died in service to America. He doesn't. And then J.D. Vance apparently at some point told Kamala Harris to go to hell over Trump's cemetery visit, which, yeah, that's helping, J.D. Why don't you go try to order another donut, you idiot? Now, why don't you go out and have sex with another piece of furniture, you freaking freak? You're all weird. They keep trying to turn this into that they were somehow the victims. They weren't. They were told repeatedly what the rules were. They immediately tried to violate them. Now, here's where I want to, to the families of the fallen soldiers in Afghanistan, I salute your family's sacrifice. I salute your soldiers. This is not about them. You want Donald Trump out there? That is your right. By all means, you're more than welcome to invite him out there. That's fine. At what point you didn't think this clown car brigade that is Trump and his campaign wouldn't pull this stuff? I don't know. But to all of you who are acting as if this is no big deal, you do not have the right to dictate anyone else's headstone but your own. You speaking authoritatively or approvingly of Trump going out there and filming anyone else's headstone is grossly irresponsible of you. You should not have done that. In the same sense, and I would say the same thing if someone went out there with a Democratic candidate and tried to film your kids' headstones. I would condemn them just as much. You do not have the right to give authority by proxy for anyone but your own family member in that cemetery. How dare you try to argue that you have some sort of God-given right to all these headstones can be shown because I love Trump? Shame on you. You should be showing the same level of decorum, of respect that we would be showing your family members and do show your family members. Not looking at that as something that needs to be thrown away to the side just because it's Donald Trump and I love Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is more important than saluting our veterans fairly. Don't do that. Do not do that. You shouldn't have invited him there because you should have known that clown car brigade was going to go off the rails. And it did. It's the Matt McNeil Show on a Thursday.
Social Security is a promise we must keep. A.J. Peters is committed to protecting this vital lifeline. A.J. Peters is fighting for
protecting and expanding Social Security, ensuring it remains strong for current and future generations.
defending against cuts and privatization schemes that threaten our seniors' well-being.
Providing security and dignity in retirement for everyone who has worked hard their whole life.
A.J. Peters is dedicated to safeguarding Social Security for all Americans.
Together, we can protect our future. I'm A.J. Peters, and I approve this message.
Vote A.J. Peters for our seniors, for our families. Let's get something done for the 7th District. Contact A.J. Peters for Congress.org. Paid for by the Campaign Fund for A.J. Peters for Congress.
You want a fast way to save some money? It's easy with Rudy Luther Toyota. Start with the Luther Advantage Card. With every new and used vehicle purchased, you'll get 3 years of 10 cents off per gallon of gas at Holiday Station stores, as well as $6 off the Works car washes. That's a lot of savings, especially when you tag that with the incredibly fuel-efficient Toyota hybrid models. Buying at Rudy Luther Toyota makes you a smart shopper. Find out all the details about the Luther Advantage Card, including all the ways you can save by visiting Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hey, are you ready for a night of politics, delicious food and drinks, and great camaraderie? Then join us on Tuesday, September 10th at Crooner Supper Club for AM 950's Presidential Debate Watching Party. Doors open at 6 p.m., so grab your friends and get ready for an unforgettable evening. We'll kick things off with a live broadcast from 7 until 8 p.m., hosted by the one and only Matt McNeil and other AM 950 personalities. You won't want to miss their hot takes and audience banter. Then at 8 o'clock, it's game time. Watch Kamala Harris go head-to-head with Donald Trump in a debate that's sure to have everyone talking. Join fellow progressives, AM 950 staff, and hosts for a night seeing Donald Trump get exposed. We've got pizza, light snacks, a cash bar, and debate bingo to keep the night rolling. Tickets are just $25, including food and a front row seat to the action. Don't miss this chance to watch Kamala Harris take on convicted felon Donald Trump and his weird MAGA crew. Get your tickets now at am950radio.com because they're going fast. Again, secure your spot and get your tickets today at am950radio.com.
Back to school is just around the corner, and Seward Co-op is here to help get students of any age stocked up with affordable organic options, specialty snacks, and meals from the hot bar for nights when you don't want to cook. Whether you need coffee to get your school drop-off going or just need a place to study, Seward Co-op has you covered this school year. Learn more at seward.coop. That's seward.coop.
It's the Matt McNeil Show. 952-946-6205. One thing really quick for the folks in Minneapolis, St. Paul right now. Apparently, Patrick, we do have some nasty weather coming through right now.
Yeah, severe thunderstorms moving into the West Metro. There are severe thunderstorm warnings for Hennepin County, Ramsey County, Dakota County, Carver County, Scott County, and Anoka County until 4:30 p.m. So basically the entire Twin Cities metro area, severe thunderstorm warnings until 4:30.
Watch out there. Just be careful out there and watch out for the nasty weather. There's a story out here, and this is going to be a springboard for me to talk about why things are done certain ways, and it has to do with Republicans here. Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, who loves taking animals out to that gravel pit, she has turned down more than $70 million in federal funds from the energy efficiency and environmental programs, according to her top budget official. The home energy rebates program would have provided the state with $69 million to give South Dakota rebates for energy-efficient home retrofits and high-efficiency electric appliances. The deadline for indicating intent to participate was last week. Earlier this year, the state passed a $1.8 million to help administer and set up the program. Now, they come on out there and they make these big speeches like, we're not going to waste this money. Well, money's going to get spent one way or the other. Do you guys are you that stupid that you think that there's going to be everyone's going to get tax rate? No, you don't get a tax rebate. And this is not just South Dakota money. As a matter of fact, South Dakota takes far more money than it actually puts into the system. It does. And so you're not going to get you're getting a nice chunk of money here that you've turned away. And it is a bit of a head scratcher. Now, once again, this is not the most cutting edge urgent issue, but it's something that's nice to have, and especially when you have houses that need to be retrofitted and made more energy efficient, this is a good thing to have. And it brings up the point of where does this mentality come from? Because it's just a stupid mentality. Take the money. The money is not going to go back to the taxpayers. And it wouldn't go back to the individual taxpayers anyway. It would go to like 2 or 3 billionaires. That's all it would go to. But it's not even going to do that. It's just going to go to a different state. So you didn't save any money. You just cost your own residents that money. But why do they do this? And I want to go back to the post-Civil War world, because there was, I have spent a lot of time in the South, and I have done tons of tours and, read quite a few books about the way, how did we get to this point today? And how did we get to the point where things were as bad as they were in the 40s and the 50s and stuff? How did we get to the point where you do have this mentality? And all of this, especially when it comes from these Republicans, because reminder, the Dixiecrats all became the Republicans. So this is where the racist element of this country, it was welcomed into the Republican Party back in the 1960s. back after the Civil War, when the slaves were freed, the mentality of white Southerners was, fine, you're free, but you're not going to get any help from us. To the point, I read about the stories of an African-American farmer back at that time who tried to take his product to market, was turned away because the black farmers, we only get product from white farmers. You need to go to the black market, the black farmers market, and go over there and you can sell your products there. And they literally had two separate markets because the white people did not want to help the black people in any capacity. And even when white farmers had problems with their crops and they didn't have good yields and they had to get other stuff, they refused to pay the same price that they pay white farmers for black farmers because they insisted it was an inferior product. That is the mentality. When you go to southern towns today, you will notice that there generally are two very different towns in these communities. There is the one town with brand new parks and brand new streets, and it, you know, it's everything looks so pretty. And then there's the other side of town where there are massive car-sized potholes. There has been no infrastructure. There's no benefit. What you're seeing is that mentality from the post-Civil War in its modern evolved form, which is that we won't spend any taxpayer dollars to help those people. It's why public schools in the South are atrocious, because they will not spend money to help out those schools because their mentality still today is the black people can help themselves. We are not going to help them. We take our kids to private school. Henceforth, we'll give money to the private school, but they will gut funding across the board, get rid of teachers that are with any value. Teachers get paid the same as much as a person working the fry bin over in McDonald's. That's how bad the things are down in the South. And this is the mentality. They don't. I was stunned by this. I was in Greenwood, Mississippi. I was stunned by this. In the one neighborhood where they had nice roads, they actually pay a private company to come up and maintain and do the roads. And I looked and I said, you realize this is about 400 times more than you need to pay for this. And they would say with a straight face, I just don't, I'll spend my money, even though it's a lot more, doing it on my street and taking care of my street because I don't want any of my money going to those people. That's what Kristi Noem's doing. She doesn't want those people getting the money. That's what Republicans across the country, and that's not just a Southern thing anymore. This is a major stance of their party. Do not help those people. Even though this money is there, it's free money. You're not going to get it back. It's not coming as a tax rebate. It's not going to do that. It's not going to be spent with you. It will be spent in other states. Why do they do that? Because still to this date, a basic core principle of Republican policy is that they do not want to help the poor, the black population, the Hispanic population, the Native American population, the Asian population, anybody but themselves. And if there's a bit of money out there that could possibly go to a group that they don't approve of, they will shut it down. Hence what Kristi Noem did. So when you look at this, don't get fooled by this. I'm going to be tough on fiscal issues. No, this is not about that. This is me. I'd rather waste $70 million my state desperately needs than prevent one black person from getting a rebate. Chicago, Seattle, talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next.
Think your company's safe? Your staff is working from
who want to contribute to the community, and we are active in local issues. We've been in the streets standing up for racial, social, and economic justice. At Minuteman Uptown, our mission is to connect all communities through technology-driven print solutions. An example of that mission is when I moved Minuteman Uptown to North Minneapolis. We're invested in this local community, and we help small businesses and local organizations throughout the Twin Cities reach their audiences. Reach out to Minuteman Uptown and partner with a printer that shares your values. Call us today at 612-870-0777 or visit us at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, weekdays at 5 p.m. On our show, you'll hear about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. Weekly correspondents like Dr. Stately, State Senator Mary Kunesh, Robert Lilligren, and Bob Blake update us with the latest news from Turtle Island. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Listen weekdays at 5 p.m. or watch the show on Native Roots Radio social media accounts. Ho-wah!
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies today with a high near 86. Tonight, showers and storms with a low around 60. And Friday, partly cloudy with a high around 78. Discover unforgettable shows at Crooner's Supper Club. Visit croonersmn.com to find your perfect concert experience. And don't miss Maggie's Lounge, open Wednesdays through Sundays at 4:30. Crooner's Supper Club, where old school nightlife meets the 21st century. That's croonersmn.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show here on your Thursday. Matt and Patrick here. And, I just went and took a little peeky poo outside, and it is not looking too pleasant out there in the Twin Cities Metro. Patrick, why don't you run through, if you can, really quick, once again, the warnings we've got going on right now.
There are a bunch of severe storm warnings basically stretching from Lake Mille Lacs south. Here in the metro, severe thunderstorm warnings. Hennepin, Ramsey, Dakota, Carver, Scott, Anoka. That's until 4:30.
Be careful if you're out at the state fair. Obviously, that's a little bit of a concern that we have there to make sure that everyone's okay out there. It's another line of those storms, very heavy. I mean, it used to be we only got storms like this. We rarely got them outside of like May, and now we seem to get them all the time. I'm not quite sure why that is. It just seems to be the case. So be careful tonight. I know the Gopher football game. Are they playing at the stadium there in town?
They are, yes. That game has been delayed. I haven't seen to what time they'll kick that off, but it has been the start time has been moved back.
Is there anything else going on tonight?
There is high school football kicking off around the metro as well. There have been some adjustments to that. Some games have moved to Friday. Other games played this afternoon to try to beat the storms. Other games will just try to ride it out and kick off when they can.
Okay. So just if you're headed to the state fair, do we know who the artist is that's playing at the state fair tonight off the top of your head?
I do not, unfortunately.
No. If you're heading out there, it sounds like this is going to move through here. Might move through here in a fairly quick haste per se. But definitely you want to be careful out there because this is one of those nasty storms, severe thunderstorm warning. So, looking at the radar right now, if you're in the metro area, the storms are just coming over about midway through Lake Minnetonka, heading towards the east. So, Victoria, Mound, Rockford, you're getting it pretty good right now. Plymouth, Chanhassen, and Shakopee, you're about to get it, and it's going to come through. So the 4 o'clock hour is going to be a bit of a slow commute out there, I imagine. Be careful. Watch out for branches. Watch out for roads that are underwater. Be careful out there and just hunker down. So if you are at the state fair and you are listening to me right now, go get your favorite food. And now is the time for you to go through creative arts. That will take you some time. Got the college building right next to it. You also could just go through the grandstand. That will take you a while to do that as well. So there you go. Matt's State Fair storm, waiting out the storm tips. This is just a huge line. Stretches back into Iowa, all the way up. The range is going to get it there. Yes, heavy storms in the north. You could feel it though, man. I walked outside. I couldn't believe how much humidity, how much it changed out there. during the day. I this morning I was out and it seemed relatively nice, and yeah, all of a sudden became Bali. Ugh. So we've got Michael Broadcorp joining us coming up here at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk to him. I don't know if you know. Once again, we've had him on the air. He has made the note that he's supporting Harris Walz this election cycle because he's so upset with Trump. He went to a DFL event for Harris Walz. I'll get his reaction to that. And then also he is officially, and he beams in pride with this, he is officially our Vikings correspondent, and they have finished up the preseason 3-0. We'll talk with him about it and kind of get his ideas. That's coming up here at 4:30. Speaking of the state fair, apparently this is the latest thing, Patrick, that the right is furious about. Apparently is a mini donut stand.
Oh, I did see this story today.
Oh, thank you, Racket. Oh, Racket, you are a great news outlet. I'll just read this the best I can. I have to do some editing here. If you're a member of the Great American Consumer Class, you unwittingly or begrudgingly support all sorts of heinous stuff. Well, I love shopping at Menards, even though the Wisconsin-based home improvement store doesn't go out of its way to advertise its anti-union zealotry or its owner's GOP mega funding. Maybe you should tell Tim Walz that. I guess he talked about it, but yeah, no, that's they are big old right-wing guys over there at Menards. Even though, like I said, Governor Walz just had a iconic moment talking about his going to Menards. Spending money in America has always been a morality crapshoot, but don't make us go further down that rabbit hole. Considering that, we direct your attention to the hilariously scandalized report from reactionary right-wing grievance mill Alpha News, who honestly aren't at all forthcoming about their own brand of partisan hackery. In it, writer Jenna Globe, we'll go with Gloob, Gloeb, Gloob, warns readers about perhaps the Minnesota State Fair's most duplicitous vendor, the menacing, dun, 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 Grandstand mini donuts. They're delicious, man. What are you talking about? Yeah, you know which one they are. Right by the fried olives, man. They're fantastic. Oh, what are you talking about? There's always a line at the Grandstand mini donuts. Alpha News breathlessly investigated them back in 2017. Gloob describes herself as an Edward R. Murrow award-winning journalist, which might warrant its own investigation, just reading from the Rackets thing. The Grandstand mini donut stand has an agenda that's not listed on the menu. I mean, heart disease is not listed on the menu either, but I mean, if you eat enough of them, I'm just saying. While you're savoring those sugary delights, some of your dollars are quietly making their way into the coffers of the DFL. Dun, dun, dun. So, hey, DFL members, if you want to go support the Grandstand Donuts is apparently the place you do it at.
Maybe they've been lying to us our whole life. Maybe the D stands for Donut Farmer Labor Party.
Oh, that would be come on. We'd all get behind that, wouldn't we? Well, outside of Vance, he doesn't know how to order a donut to save himself. The story hasn't changed much over the years. Grandstand Mini Donuts still channels its profits into a political action committee. Best Fair Foods, that distributes money to DFL groups. Gloob reports that she even bothered the PAC over the insidious Snack Shack, but they smartly ignored her request for comment. Our advice for everyone political persuasions during this, one of the most menacing election seasons in recent memory, don't shoehorn politics into literally everything. Just enjoy the freaking state fair. I would say so. It's a freaking mini donut. If that's what you're doing, I mean, and if that's how you're going to create victory, then good luck with all that. Seriously, just, good luck with all that. If you are going to go through, I was going to go get some corn on the cob, but the liberals got there first. You're going to be at the saltine stand. Saltines are pure. No water, though, because they're apparently supporting the Democrats. I could care less. I'm dead serious. I get every year food, the Hmong Union Kitchen. I get the Dimitri's Gyros. The Dimitri's Gyros are delicious. Absolutely delicious. The one by the carousel by Fox 9. Fan-freaking-tastic. Absolutely fantastic. Love them. We get mini donuts every year. I get a Pronto Pup. Pronto Pup, my gosh. I mean, that was only the name of my kid. Pronto Pup McNeil. I don't want to. What are the chances there is actually a child named Pronto Pup in this state? I'm going to say there is a chance of that. I get the deep fried pickles. Oh God, they're the ones with the cream cheese inside. Oh, they're so good. Go to the Dairy Barn. I could care less. I'm there for good food. If they're giving some money to a Republican, fine. It doesn't mean that the food doesn't taste good. But if you're this screams that you're so desperate for any victory that you just have to try to create victories out of thin air. That's what that screams to me, at least. And once again, DFL, if you want a good donut, the Grandstand Mini Donuts, apparently you can get those mini donuts and part of the proceeds go help the DFL. Bing! I don't know if this is going to have the desired effect you think it's going to have, but that's just me. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. A sad high school sports story. Bloomington Kennedy, the 60th season of boys hockey will serve as a conclusion. The school announced on Thursday it's going to disband its boys hockey program after the 24-25 season and encourage athletes to play at Bloomington Jefferson. Kennedy and Jefferson already have a co-op in girls hockey. Absolutely saddened, Kennedy activities director John Anderson said, "We had a rich tradition going back to the 1960s. We wish we were also able to maintain a standalone program." The statement posted to the school website cited low participation for the decision. I'll get to that in a second. Since the Eagles' inaugural season in 1965, the population, demographic, culture, and economy of East Bloomington have drastically changed. The statement said these changes continue to decline the East Side participation in the youth sports levels in the sport. The cost of participating in hockey had a role in decline, Anderson indicated. Hockey is an expensive sport. We try to make all sports as affordable as possible. A number of communities are seeing lower participation. Bloomington Kennedy, long associated with the phrase Eastside Pride, has made 7 state tournament appearances, won the state championship in 1987. I remember that one, led by forward Jason Miller, who went on to play for the Gophers. The Eagles finished second in 1984. This is sad. But it is where it's going to go. I mean, there are a lot of things working against this. I have talked about youth sports numerous times, and one of the things that I will continue to bring up about this is that a lot of these parents, the problems are caused not by parents who are trying to hurt the system. Quite the opposite. A lot of the problems are caused by parents who are there for their kids, want their kids have a specific option, and have a lot of money to make it happen. And just because they have a lot of money doesn't mean that they're not there sacrificing their time, cheering on their kids, and doing it. The system has evolved. It's changed. It just is not there. My guess is in the next 10 years, at least another 7 to 10 metro area schools will dump their hockey program. First of all, open enrollment picks most of these school programs clean. If you're a good hockey player, say at a Bloomington Kennedy, you probably have already been told by much more prominent hockey programs, better come play with us. We'll open enroll you. And once again, funny story, open enrollment is supposed to be, not kind of coordinated. It's supposed to be there. But if you can play a sport, you're always allowed to open enroll into that other school. It's funny how that all works. But still, that's, that the kids leave. So what you're left with is a bunch of kids who have not open enrolled, want to stay in the school that they're in, but all the best players, the top line, in this case in hockey, the top line is all been purged and is playing for various other schools in the metro area. And, so they're gone. So they're paying a lot of money to be on a really bad team. And as I've said before, you can only put up with that so much. I mean, parents, sure, they might be willing to put the money out there, but if a kid goes out there and plays on a team that's 3-25, And they say, we're looking forward to you next season. Well, how many, maybe, I don't want to open enroll into a different school district. I'll just play a different sport. I'll just go, I'll play football or I'll play lacrosse or I'll play baseball. And that is what's happening. That's a big part of it. Plus, it's god-awful expensive. And to compete at these top levels now, it's not just a show up and, I remember in the 80s, just the ice time alone was obnoxious. But now it's specialty programs and clinics, specialty coaches that work one-on-one with the player, dietitians. It's insane. And unless you've got an incredibly wealthy school district, you're just not able to compete. It's just the nature of it. And once again, the parents here are not villains in an 80s movie. A lot of them are loving, caring parents who happen to have a lot of money and happen to be able to take that money and spend it on their kids and are there at the games and they're not mailing it in. They are traveling to Vegas or to New York or to Florida for weekend tournaments and stuff. They're there paying all the money out of pocket just so they can cheer on their kid. They're giving their kid, because of the money, the opportunity. And it's funny because if you look at the math on it, a lot of these people spend a few $100,000 on kids' sports, starting at 10, 12 years old through high school to get their kid a $80,000 college scholarship. I mean, it's nuts. The system is broken, but I don't know how you're going to change it, because the minute the people said, well, there are people with money out there that are willing to spend this money to give their kid an advantage, well, that's there. I will say this, eventually all this will be club teams, because that's already happening in some of the sports. I was stunned. Was it volleyball? I think it's volleyball, where I was told by a parent, my kids never played volleyball, but I was told by a parent, it's like all the best volleyball players don't play high school volleyball. They're all in these specialty club teams, these traveling club teams, and they don't want to they don't want to risk getting injured in a high school game. It's already happening on some levels where you're losing, the kids are just opting for a private program. People are offering it. People will pay for it. Doesn't mean they're bad parents because they're spending the money in it, but what you get is this. The school districts that are not obscenely flush with cash are having to shut down the programs. And sure, I think to a point, it will be interesting to see. I mean, you'll have fewer teams but you'll have bigger matchups, but at the same time, eventually it'll all go to club teams eventually, I think. It's not what it was. The high school hockey tournament is not what it was. It just is not, because of this. But I don't know how you can look at a parent that just because they happen to have a lot of money and they want to spend it on their kid, and they sit there and they support their kid and they're trying to help their kid, how that's necessarily a bad thing. It's not, but the end result, the consequences of all of this have devastated some of these sports programs and made them a hollow shell of what they once were. It just is a fact. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Thursday.
When addiction takes hold, it's easy to feel like no one can help. But you're not in this alone. For 75 years, Hazelden Betty Ford has been at the forefront of addiction and mental health care, evolving treatment, reimagining recovery, and breaking through barriers to help families everywhere find healing. So please reach out at 855-489-2383. Help is here. Sponsored by Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation and aired by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hey, it's Patrick. This is one of everybody's least favorite things to hear, but we're heading into the home stretch of summer. Back to school is right around the corner. Those final sleepovers are going to be taking place. It's time to call Mike Cleaning Heroes at Zero Res for a reset before we head into the fall. If you haven't tried Zero Res or it's been months since your last deep carpet clean, now is the time to call. Right now, you can get your entire home zero-resified for Minnesota's ultimate carpet cleaner and get 3 rooms zero-resified for just $119. Along with that great deal on carpets, it's also a great time to get the summer crud cleaned out of your air ducts. Zero Res is taking 20% off any air duct cleaning this month. And don't forget about your dryer vents while you're at it. Zero Res has a 4.9 rating on Google reviews. Schedule your appointment at ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 952-ZERO-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Hi, I'm Mary T, inviting you to experience our integrative Mary T Health and Wellness Center, offering physical, occupational, speech, and lymphedema therapies. Experience our guided imagery, meditation, Tibetan medicine, dry needling, massage services, including cupping and oncology massage. Sign up for our free wellness screenings and learn more at marytwellness.com. All major health insurance providers are accepted. Come for therapy, experience wellness.
Hi, I'm Kelly Kirk.
I'm Chad Larson.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Your hosts for Searching for Service. Tune in to Rotary's influential show and podcast, sharing touching stories of service locally and abroad.
We bring you weekly guests that connect, inform, and inspire our listeners on all things service.
We highlight diverse service opportunities that appeal to both Rotarians and people driven to serve in their communities.
Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcast. It's time
to stop searching
and start serving.
Yeah, there it is. It's coming through right now. Just be careful out there. It is it's going to be a stormy commute home this afternoon on your Thursday. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Severe thunderstorm watch still in effect. There are some reports of some hail apparently in with this storm, so just be careful with that. The Education Department of Minnesota Department of Education released data today on the math and reading scores. They remain disappointingly low in the 23-24 school year. Fewer than half the tested students met the state proficiency standards in reading and math, unchanged from the prior year. The data show that Minnesota students, I didn't go down, I guess that's a positive, but still not much of one. The data show that Minnesota students have not yet recovered from the learning losses inflicted by the profound disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm just going to say, without a doubt in my mind, it's probably going to be a downward turn that will take 10 years to come back from. And that's a harsh thing to say. That's a harsh thing to kind of have to go with. But it's the truth. I don't think this is going to be one of those things where you just had an entire 2 years of student activities, education, get completely thrown on its ear because of the COVID epidemic. And no, by the way, righto guy, no, it wasn't the right idea to keep the kids in school and let all these people get sick and people die, because a lot of people freaking died because of COVID. No, they didn't. Yeah, they did. It was something that, even though, and the real problem with our society and our situation is, we've had this happen before. We've had major outbreaks before of diseases, and we just forgot. We just, I guess, insisted it wasn't going to happen again. And that's just a dumb thought process. That's just not how it works. And yeah, we didn't have any plan in place. And so when all of a sudden things got really bad, guess what? It got bad really quick. I remember, I think one of the things I'll never forget was realizing how many of my children's friends literally spent the entire day just on a screen in their rooms. You can't do that and think that that's not going to have an impact. That was, I do not begrudge the decisions that were made at that time, but this is going to be a long-term problem. And I don't know how you pull yourself out of it. No, you don't just teach a test to make yourself feel better. You need to, frankly, I mean, I've read a few arguments that maybe if we, and I know that people are going to get upset about, oh, you're spending money. If you spent a bunch of taxpayer dollars and really kind of got in there with tutors and try to fix that gap that created in that window to catch everybody up you might be able to mitigate the negative downsides to it. But I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be championing the amount of money it would cost to do it. Fewer than half the tested students now meet proficient standards in reading and math, unchanged from the previous year. There's also a little change in test scores by race or other demographic factors since in 2024. We just need all students to succeed and thrive in school, said State Department of Education Commissioner Willie Jett in a statement. Statewide assessment and accountability data are an important part of a broader set of measures that tell our schools and families how students are doing and guide the Minnesota Department of Education in planning how best support our school communities. The data are derived from the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment Tests. All students in grades 3 through 8 take the exams, with the additional reading test administered grade 10 and the math test at grade 11. Students are categorized into 4 categories based on whether or not they meet or exceed state knowledge standards for their grades. Students are considered proficient if they meet or exceed the standards. Education experts have noted that Minnesota student achievement has been sliding for the better part of a decade. Even prior to the pandemic, many of the problem is largely driven by the staggering racial inequities among the worst in the nation and compounded by the longstanding sense of complacency. Well, once again, that's a definite an offset of open enrollment. Open enrollment, there was always going to be the bottom of the hill. And as long as you have that, those school districts are losing funds. They're not as well, this is the problem with open enrollment is you create these dead zones as far as schools. Everyone wants to go to Minnetonka or Edina or Wayzata. But where are those kids coming from? In recent years, DFL legislators with the backing of Governor Walz have approved massive new investments in state education system in hopes of reversing some of the declines, but many of those changes are just beginning to be implemented as of this now. Long-term key investments from the 2023 legislative session are currently being implemented, including the largest funding increase for K-12 education in state history. Once fully implemented, these investments will positively impact students for many years to come. One bright spot, though, in the data, the attendance rates went up sharply. About 3/4 of students attended school regularly in 2023, up roughly 5 percentage points from the previous year, but the numbers remain significantly lower than the years prior to the pandemic, when about 85% of the students attended regularly. We are proud of the work the education system has done to strengthen relationships to boost attendance. I will say this, and I'll bring in a story from early this week, that story from Axios, where they talked about getting rid of phones in schools. I think that that's a huge step. That's directed by the state government too, to basically you have to put some kind of plan in place to deal with kids and phones, because you just can't have kids constantly on phones. You just can't have that. And I'm hopeful that that's going to actually have a major impact and fix things as well. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. When we do return, Michael Broadcorp, not only are we going to talk some politics, but he gets his first Viking segment of the year. Michael Broadcorp joins us when we do come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Thursday.
I'm having a really hard time lately, and I'm worried no one will understand what I'm going through.
I feel so alone. I wish there was somebody I could talk to.
If you're looking for support, Mental Health Minnesota is here for you, with connections to others who have also struggled with their mental health and can provide support and resources. Services are anonymous, confidential, free of charge, and open 7 days a week. Connect today at mentalhealthmn.org or call 855-HERE-FOR-MN today. Sponsored by Mental Health Minnesota, the Minnesota Broadcasters Association, and this station.
At Better Futures Minnesota, we support Minnesota's environment by working towards zero waste and the transformation of the lives of men in our workforce development model. Better Futures Minnesota engages men with histories of incarceration and homelessness. Our approach reaffirms each man's dignity, instilling self-discipline and behaviors that empower them to achieve self-sufficiency and a better future. We set hard-to-employ men on a pathway to independence through employment in our reuse retail warehouse and work crews specializing in building deconstruction, property maintenance, appliance recycling, and janitorial services. We strive to create a sustainable future where social equity, economic opportunity, and environmental justice intersect. By addressing these interconnected challenges, Better Futures Minnesota works towards building resilient, healthy communities for all Minnesotans. We believe that true sustainability can only be achieved when all members of our community can thrive. Join us in making a difference. Visit us at betterfuturesminnesota.com and donate today.
Hey there, AM 950 community. Join me, J. Peter Bogosian, every Saturday, 2 to 3 p.m. for a double dose of queer joy. This queer book saved my life, and The Gaily Show. These programs are a jubilant celebration of the transformative impact of queer literature and the dynamic spirit of LGBTQ plus culture and entertainment right here in Minnesota. Tune in and be a part of this vibrant community. For all the details, visit thisqueerbook.com and am950radio.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Klopfleisch. Join me every Sunday at 5 p.m. for Politics Matters. We'll talk about how civics, politics, and law affect you by highlighting a different topic each week. On this week's show, we start our journey through the Constitution, discuss how Oklahoma State Superintendent goes rogue with a far-right crusade with Bibles, and how Mikey J tells lies in a visit to Minnesota. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. for Politics Matters with Bruce Klopfleisch to discover why government and civics matter. And podcast the show anytime on your favorite app.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Showers and storms this evening. Some could be severe with an overnight low of 61. Then Friday, sunshine with a high of 79.
The music is still the hottest at Crooner's Supper Club in Fridley. Crooner's is located just north of I-694 off Highway 65 and Moore Lake Drive. View their upcoming music schedules and food menus at croonersloungemn.com.
I just went and took a look outside. It's a little stormy out there. Be careful driving through the metro area if you're heading out right now. Michael Broadcorp, we are going to get to Vikings football with you. We will get to that. He is our Viking expert. This is his first visit of the season. We didn't want to talk during the preseason. Now that that's done, we'll talk about that. But that's coming up in a little bit later on. Of course, Michael Broadcorp, noted author. Get his book. It's fantastic. And he's covered politics from the Republican side. He's joined us in the past to talk about how this year he has changed that he can't stand Trump, so he's actually supporting Kamala Harris. I can't believe you're supporting Royce White either, so it's going to be interesting to see where you're going there. But Michael Broadcorp is kind enough to join us today and talk a little bit about politics in the state of Minnesota. Hey, Michael, how are you?
It's great to be here. Let me clear up some confusion right away. I'm not supporting Royce White, okay? So there's no confusion. I'm not supporting Royce White for the United States Senate. Okay.
Breaking news.
Yes.
I don't think this is anything shocking. You went to. I'll start with this. Now, I want to make sure very clear here. You are still a Republican, and that is fine. I don't trust people like Tulsi Gabbard or Norm Coleman, for that matter, who go into a room, then come on out and say, "Okay, now I'm a Republican," and say, "Wait a second here: transportation, health and human services, environment, education." All your policies changed overnight in one thing? That doesn't make any sense. What you're doing is much more real, which is there is an issue or an individual that is so bad that even though that you're standing by your standards, which, there are a lot of things you and I don't agree with politically, this has caused you to realize that the problem is this individual is too great that I can't stand by and do this. Doesn't mean that tomorrow, you're going to be, Johnny Progressive and your eco VW bus touring around the state or anything like this. It just means that this is for you. Once again, all politics is personal, and you've just had it with Donald Trump.
Correct. And let me just say, just so your listeners know, I mean, one of the things, Matt, I point out to you is that I didn't vote for Trump in 16 or 20. I haven't spent the last 9 years going out and browbeating him and saying some of the vicious things that his vice presidential running mate has said. I've tried to provide analysis down the middle on the race and offer my perspective. I was candid and honest with people that I was not a Donald Trump supporter, but I still tried to provide analysis down the middle. That changed this election cycle, and particularly in the last month or so. And I've decided to leave the bench maybe for the last time and go out there and get my door knocking shoes on and go out there and pick a side and wear the jersey of a team and be out there and proudly be supporting Vice President Harris and Governor Walz's campaign, because I think it's absolutely the best for America, the future, democracy, and what we all should agree upon.
I mean, you can do that, and this is by all means. There's a lot of people in politics and journalism and stuff like this that have had to make a stand, and this is where you're making your stand. You went to a DFL Harris rally, correct?
First time in my life that I've ever gone to a DFL event as a supporter. And what I mean by that is I was a tracker. I did opposition research. I've gone to events as a journalist and reported on stuff. But no, I went to an event last week. I went down to Mankato, drove down and it was at a viewing party at Mankato West High School to watch Governor Walz's acceptance speech of the vice presidential nomination at the Democratic National Convention. I was in a room full of former students, people who knew him from the community. It was an amazing experience. And it was really it felt good to be there. And I got to talk with people as a Republican about why I was doing what I was doing. And people could not have been more receptive and kind.
It must have been somewhat, endearing for you to see the amount of Republicans on the stage at the DNC saying, no, we need to go with Kamala Harris. This is in the line. You are no means by yourself on this hill. There's a pretty substantial amount of Republicans who have said enough's enough.
Correct. And a lot of what fueled this is my conversations over the last 9 years that I've had with a lot of my Republican friends, conversations I'm still having today. But let's recognize something. There was a lot of Republicans at the Democratic National Convention last week, but there was also a big announcement made. Vice President Harris is going to be doing a sit-down interview. It's going to be released by CNN. And in that time, excerpts of that have come out. And one of the things that she's committed to is putting a Republican in her cabinet. That's the type of substantive outreach that I think needs to happen. That's the type of tapestry of America that needs to be represented in Washington. And it's significant that she's doing that. And it shows the commitment that her leadership and her campaign has to uniting Americans after this election cycle. And it's one of the reasons that kind of shared appreciation and respect for all that we hold holy in this country, which is, the rule of law, the Constitution, and democracy, is one of the reasons I'm proudly supporting this campaign.
I wonder if it's Kinzinger. I wonder if it's Kinzinger. I don't think it's Lynn Cheney, although it's been interesting watching Liz Cheney go after Trump. I don't think Liz Cheney, I think after her dad, I don't know if that would be the case, but I wonder if it's Kinzinger they're thinking about bringing into the cabinet.
I think it's impressive that they're thinking of it, and it's the type of outreach that's important in this race. This is going to be a game of, just like football, it's a game of inches. And this is going to be an election on inches, and everything is important and everything counts. And I think I have felt very much at ease being able to navigate the space, even showing up last Wednesday night to Mankato West. That was a DFL event. That's a partisan event that I went to. They could not have been more receptive, more welcome, and more interesting to take me and hear from me as a Republican. When I had some chats with some people around me about why I was doing it, they were very respectful, and it was a great event.
I know you have friends who are working within the GOP in this state.
Sure.
But I have to ask the question of what is going on in this party. I have made a point of a daily post that they haven't even, not since the primaries, have they even acknowledged Royce White won their primary, and whether they like it or not, he's their official U.S. Senate candidate. They haven't even mentioned him. He's out stalking the DFL booth at the state fair like some kind of crazed man, which is kind of weird. You had a video come up, I think it was the DFL put it out, that they went to the GOP booth and found literature for the candidate in the Minnesota 2nd District who withdrew from the primary, but yet his literature was still in the GOP booth 2 weeks later. There seems to be a real mismanagement this cycle around, which I'm having a hard time. I've seen parties have bad times. I've never seen anything like this where there just doesn't seem to be a rudder on the ship at this point.
I think the challenge that exists is with both parties in some instances is they are a volunteer-driven, activist-driven matter. The party leadership can't decide who the endorsed candidate is. It's up to the activists. And what I have consistently said is that the activists who voted to support Royce White for the United States Senate made a cataclysmic mistake. Royce White did not win that endorsement by subterfuge or problems. He won it fair and square. And it was Republicans like me who had made a decision a long time ago not to show up and be a part of the party process. And so he won it fair and square. It's a shame that he won it. I know that there are a number of people who voted for Royce White at the endorsing convention who have since backed away from his campaign, people that supported him who are regretting it immensely. And it's a sad state of affairs. And him being out at the state fair, let me just also give a little context to your listeners. My first campaign was Boschwitz's race in '96. He was running, trying to win back a seat from Senator Wellstone, who was run up for re-election for the first time. I spent a lot of time at the state fairgrounds. The state fairgrounds is a great place for retail politics. But I'm going to tell you something. It is not advisable for a candidate to go milling around and looking for disagreement and debate at the opposition side. And that's something I wouldn't have allowed when I was working on a campaign, and certainly when I was a party officer. The fact that Royce White is outside kind of milling around the DFL booth having debates, engaging with people, going in and buying material on a regular basis. He should be at his booth talking with Republicans, not picking fight with Democrats at the booth. That's not a recipe for success. And that kind of behavior needs to be stopped because it's not going to end well. And I think that's the type of bombastic campaign, the in-your-face stuff that Royce White thinks is great, but it's the reason why he's not a credible candidate for the United States Senate.
I've never heard of anyone doing that. I mean, I know the Michelle McDonald thing was kind of the thing where she wanted to get into the GOP booth, and they're like, "No, you're not getting in here." But he has his own booth,
correct,
down the street from the GOP booth, and yeah, he doesn't seem to have much. At least I've not seen it. And then there were reports that he was there at his booth, and he was swearing at people out in the open. Their families and kids out here. What are you doing? It's just there. I don't. I've seen bad candidates. I've never seen anything like Royce White. Royce White is quite. I just don't have no idea. Even I look at Steve Bannon. It's like, what did you even see here in this guy that made you want to push him forward?
There is no redeeming quality of Royce White's candidacy in any way, shape, or form. There's nothing that's going to be a benefit to the party apparatus, to Republicans on a whole, by having him representing Republicans in the race for the United States Senate. It's a shame. It's a travesty. It's really rock bottom. And that type of abrasive politics doesn't work. And it's not going to work at the state fair. He's going to get rejected soundly at the ballot box. And I think he'll go down as the worst, if not the worst, endorsed candidate for statewide office in Republican Party history.
What is going on in 2? I mean, I once again, I understand they had the one guy withdrew. Tirab was the guy. It was going to be his. And then all of a sudden, there seems to be now a question again of whether or not there are people, Republicans in the 2nd district, or who they're endorsing. Once again, I came up with that literature, the wrong literatures at the GOP booth. They had to put the GOP head had to put out a notice saying, no, we completely support the endorsed candidate. What is going on down there?
Now, Matt, for your listeners, I live in the 2nd district. I live in Eagan. So I live in the 2nd. This is my district. I think this is one thing I'll contrast this with is this. Look at what's going on the Democratic side. They were able to get, through their party process, they were able to facilitate and coordinate Joe Biden dropping out of the race, the vice president slipping into that spot, and the entire party coalescing and building a campaign around her in a very, very short time. It was effortless. I'm not saying it didn't take work, but from the outside, it was very well coordinated. And look at the enthusiasm and unity that exists right now on the Democratic side. The Republicans in the 2nd district can't figure out who the candidate is. And the responsibility I put on this is Taylor Rahm. He was the Republican endorsed candidate. He got out of the race to work on Trump's campaign. And he has engaged in, I think, a little bit of subterfuge and a little bit of shenanigans, in a sense that he suspended his campaign, but there were people out there doing this stuff. Let me just say this generally as for Republicans. Minnesota is a tough state for Republicans to win, and they have to have their A game. And when Republicans in the 2nd congressional district can't get on the same page as to who the candidate is that's running, you ain't going to win the race. Because when Republicans are spending time figuring out whose literature is where, figuring out who's suspended their race and who's not, trying to figure out why there's literature and lawn signs going on, you know what Congressman Craig is doing? She's running her race. And this is why Republicans can't have nice things in this state, because they can't get their act together.
And you and I are going to talk football. We are at football season. We got 2 months here. This is not the time for you to reassess and reevaluate. You need to have a campaign that's running on all engines at this point. And it just seems like, to a point, it's Finstad down in 1, Stauber in 8, Fishbach. I'm not too concerned about Emmer. Emmer's leadership kind of has a lot of things on his side to help him out. But when you look at Fishbach, you look at Stauber, you look at Finstad. These 3 guys are basically on their own. It's like I don't get the impression there's any party support, that they don't really have any consistent messaging that seems to go there. They showed up to that one event at the precinct in Minneapolis with the speaker, but outside of that, they're kind of off on their own trying to figure out what they're going to do, because there just doesn't seem to be any coordinated, information coming down from the state party.
And Matt, let me just tell you something. The election is 68 days from today. And there was a Star Tribune story just this week about the ongoing confusion that's going on with Republicans in the 2nd. And my message to Republicans in the 2nd is get your act together. The leadership of the 2nd district, stop this fight over this intramural contest and focus on the election. Because if I'm a Republican who believes that there needs to be balance in this state, that the Republicans need to start winning some elections. And I'm not making the case that Angie Craig needs to go or what. But the point of the matter is Republicans are fumbling before they even get out of the locker room. And that's the thing here. And that's what I think the 2nd congressional district is without a doubt the most competitive district in this state. And it's one of the most competitive in the country. And so it would be great if Republicans and Democrats could get on the same. Republicans are not on the same page. And I think there's a good opportunity with Joe Tereb versus Angie Craig to really have some spirited discussions on what's best for the district. But when Republicans are fumbling like this, it's not going to happen.
You got, it's always going to be a tough year when the opposing party has a person on the top ticket,
Yes.
with Governor Walz. It's a tough race when you have the best coattails in the U.S. Senate, Amy Klobuchar, there.
Yes.
So there's 2 strikes. The lack of really cohesive messaging. I'm thinking if this continues, I think 8's in jeopardy for the Republicans. I think 8 is in jeopardy. 1 is a little bit more of a long shot, but I mean, if it depends on how bad this goes, and if you and I have both seen this, when these things start going downhill and going downhill fast, unless you can figure out a way to stop it, it will get bad.
Yes, and now add the other dynamic of Royce White at the top of the ticket. I mean, it's Trump, J.D. Vance, and then it's Royce White. There is always a surprise on election day, and anything can happen in some of these races. And although Minnesota, I think the 2nd congressional district is truly the only swing district, there can be some surprises on election night. And when you have the dynamic that Republicans have in the state, boy, they've really made this election cycle difficult.
We'll push this aside. Let's take a break. When we come on back, we got to get to the Vikings because they listened to what you and I said last year. They finally listened to that. Michael Broadcorp set them straight. We'll talk about the Vikings, end of the preseason and the beginning of the season coming up. It's Michael Broadcorp joining us today on the show, 952-946-6205. We'll also get a quick weather update when we return. It's the Matt McNeil Show on your Thursday.
Urban and suburban communities thrive when we support our rural neighbors. AJ Peters is the leader who understands this. AJ Peters is committed to
bridging the gap between urban, suburban, and rural areas, ensuring everyone has a voice.
Supporting rural candidates who fight for health care, infrastructure, and education in their communities.
When we support rural areas, we strengthen our entire state. Together, we can create a more united and prosperous future.
A.J. Peters believes in unity and progress for all. Let's support our rural candidates and build a better tomorrow.
Together, we can make a difference. I'm A.J. Peters, and I approve this message.
Vote A.J. Peters for unity, for progress. Let's get something done for our future. Contact A.J. Peters for Congress.org. Paid for by the Campaign Fund for A.J. Peters for Congress.
Hi, Matt McNeil here. I've had people ask if my son Charlie took our RAV4 from Rudy Luther Toyota on a cross-country road trip, and indeed he did. He headed west and saw the national parks of South Dakota, Montana, Utah, California, Arizona, Colorado, and then back home. He drove 5,000 miles. The RAV4 performed great, and he had a fantastic time. Not only was the RAV4 great on long highway stretches, but it easily handled the back roads too. And with the RAV4 Hybrid, the fuel efficiency was incredible, saving him a ton. Test drive the RAV4 today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of Minneapolis on 394.
Hi, it's Angela Warner. The Warner family is pretty serious about the fair. The food, the fun, the family time. But Warner Stallion has another fair tradition. Back when we used the fairgrounds as our warehouse, these weeks meant clearing out all of our appliances for a mega sale. And that tradition stuck. Right now, during Savings on a Stick, you'll save up to 50% off regular prices. And then we add a bonus for each one you buy for up to $1,200 instant savings. State Fair Savings on a Stick, only at Warner Stallion Appliance.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Quickly, Patrick, we do have a weather update. Once again, severe thunderstorm warning going through the metro area right now. Heavy storms out there, but there has been an upgrade in one area, correct?
There's a tornado warning for Anoka County, Chisago County, and Isanti County. That is until 5 o'clock.
All right, be careful. Please be careful out there. And if things start turning on you, make sure you take some shelter for sure. Michael Broadcorp is joining us. Last year, Michael, you and I lamented the Vikings because the feeling we had was they didn't take the preseason seriously. And because of that, it felt like it was 2 or 3 weeks into the season before they finally started to click. This time, I watched that team, and quite a bit in the last two games, especially the last two preseason games. They did. I mean, obviously, some of this was who are we going to keep on the roster and who goes to the practice squad. But overall, I was impressed because they definitely seem to have a different mentality in those preseason games than they had last year.
There was a different approach, and it's nice, Matt, when you were saying that the Vikings staff listened to us. It's nice to be listened to by someone in this day and age, and I'm glad the Vikings funded. No, it was a renewed effort. And again, I mean, as you and I discussed, preseason games have generally been throwaway games, and it's the definition of a preseason game. But there was an intensity that I think was different this season, much more of I think I don't want to say effort. I don't want to, but there was just more of a complete package in these games. And we were able to see that. So I'm as I always am, Matt, leading with optimism and hope as the season starts. Just 8 or 9 days away here.
The one thing that is a little harsh is that we really didn't see anything of the starters. Now, once again, you got 3 preseason games. That's going to be kind of the case. Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold, those are going to be our starting running back or starting quarterback. I got faith that they're getting them ready to go, but obviously this is something that when you really don't see them, the question of how much preparedness are you getting? Because when you play the Giants in New York coming up on that first weekend, they're playing for real and they are going to hit you and hit you hard. And so I'm kind of a little concerned about that.
I have faith that this renewed approach is just filling me. I mean, I know the Vikings, there's been some offseason challenges, as there always are with the Vikings, but I have faith. And I'm excited about this season. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm coming in. There's nothing that's waning away my optimism. I'm more optimistic than I ever have been before, just as much as I probably have been before. I'm excited, and I have a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of we'll see. It's again going into Giant Stadium, going into New York, New Jersey, but going into where the Giants play and winning that game is going to be a challenge. And so we'll see. But it's going to start fast. It's going to start strong. They're starting on the road September 8th, and they come back to Minnesota on September 15th for the big home opener against the 49ers, which I'll be there excited, cheering, and screaming.
One thing that they did, obviously, in the last month or so, really tried to shore up their cornerback situation, the secondary situation there.
Correct.
Is it Gilmore is the guy they brought in now? They gave him the contract. A lot of people have said, well, that goes a long way. Where was Gilmore last year? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I forget.
He's one of those guys that he held out his contract waiting for this exact situation. He knew there was going to be a team out there that needed somebody. So we had to kind of pay premium dollar to get him, but he's a really good cornerback. And so I feel that the secondary definitely seems to have taken a step upward.
That has. And then the Vikings made some moves today in the quarterback position. They waived Jaron Hall, which was a little surprising, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do in that quarterback position. I think I was hoping that McCarthy was going to have make some throws this season, but that's not going to happen. And so we'll see where they go. But this team has a lot of potential. And again, I'm going to keep saying it, Matt, hope and optimism. I got my Vikings hat on. I got for the interview, got my Vikings, one of my pullovers on for the Vikings for this interview. I'm excited, raring to go.
All right. So first 4 games at the Giants.
Here we go.
Oh yeah, I know.
I knew this was coming. It's like parent teacher conferences. Let's go over the grades.
Oh, I got to tell you about why your son's going to be repeating this year. No, they're at the Giants the first weekend. 49ers at home, Texans at home. That's going to be a better Texans team, and then at the Packers. 4 very tough games to start up the season here. I guess
3-1.
You think 3-1? Which one? Which one are they going to lose?
Well, they're definitely not going to lose at Green Bay. I mean, I can't say that, but I'm going to say 3-1. I don't know which one they lose, but I maybe Giants, but they're certainly not losing at Green Bay. You can take that to the bank. You can mark the tape. There's no way they're losing at Green Bay. So I'm going to say 3-1
Letters
How about you?
Letters and cards to Michael Broadcorp. I'm going to say 2-2. I think that 49ers game is a tough one. That's going to be a tough game. But I look at I think that they could definitely win that the Giants game at New York, and I think they can win that game at home versus the Texans, especially if they lose the 49ers game. That gives them renewed fire. They win that game. Green Bay, gosh, these northern.
Say it, Matt.
No, man.
I'm doing the math in my head. I think you got to say it. Where do you think they're going to do on September 29th at Green Bay?
Oh, gosh. I'll tell you what. I'll share your optimism. I will take them as 3-1. But the thing which is going to be funny is that they're going to be 3-1 with 2 road wins and 1 home win. And I think that's the case. Then they got the Jets at home on. Well, actually, that's a London game. They're the home team for that game in London versus the Jets, and we'll have to see how that goes. Michael Broadcorp, once again, as always, we will check in with you before too long. More on the Vikings, more on politics, of course, as this political season rolls on. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great day.
You too. Everyone, be careful out there. Watch out. Once again, in Anoka County, they had a severe thunderstorm, tornado warning in effect up that way. Severe thunderstorm warnings in effect throughout the metro area. Be careful. Native Roots Radio up next. We're back tomorrow. Till then, see ya. If it's fall during an election,